Hello, everybody. It's Goomer22 here with another VDL playoff breakdown. Today, it's the beginning of week 7, so we still have 2 weeks yet to play, and we're going to go through the different divisional scenarios and overall kind of wild card scenarios that could happen, and what people what games to watch out for this week and whatnot. So let's just jump right in, and we'll start checking this out. All right, so let's start with Ruby Division. And for each division, I've got the matchups here with the corresponding shapes and colors. So what's nice about this is even though there's 2 weeks left, there's only one more divisional game left, and that's this week, week 7. So it's easier to isolate, what can happen within the divisions because there's only one interdivisional game, and since the other ones are all out of division, anything could happen in week 8, and it's not going to affect the division. Like the whole division could win, the whole division could lose. So anyways, in Ruby Division, so we've got Rebellion up here at the top, and at worst, Rebellion ends 5-3 plus 4, which means they're virtually guaranteed. Actually, they are guaranteed wild card. But I did this slide before I did the wild card analysis, but they are guaranteed wild card at plus 4. So, interestingly enough, in Ruby, because of how good their records are, you could actually end with 4 teams at 6-2 or 5 teams at 5-3. And that's because the Terrors actually haven't played their week 6 match yet. So we'll have to see what happens with that as well. Additionally, so Rebellion can't lose any differential tiebreakers for the divisional spots. The only way they don't get a divisional playoff spot is if they lose both of their games, and then 2 out of 3 of either Celestials, Ice Cubes, or Manitans win both. Now, Manitans face Rebellion, so that game would have to be a win for Manitans, and then either Ice Cubes or Celestials would have to win this week, and then Rebellion would just have to lose this last week, and 2 of the other teams that won would need to win again. So unlikely, I think, but it's not. Well, I mean, with 2 weeks, it's not out of contention. It's definitely possible. Anyways, the Slowpokes at 2-4, the max they can be is 4-4 minus 1, and Celestials at worst are 4-4 plus 0. So even if the top 2 teams lost both their games 0-2, Slowpokes wouldn't be able to reach that 2nd seed, so they're going to have to hope for a wild card tiebreaker. So the biggest game to watch out this week is definitely Manitans versus Rebellion, because winning that game really helps the Celestials, Ice Cubes, and Terrors to have a shot at taking this at the 2nd seed. Well, the Terrors couldn't take the 2nd seed, but sorry. I had that reversed. Rebellion winning helps the Celestials, Ice Cubes, and Terrors because anyone who you're really close with in record, you want to lose, obviously. So the Celestials, Ice Cubes, and Terrors, they all want Rebellion to win so that Taco, they're one of their contenders, loses. And so, especially with the Terrors, because the only way the Terrors make it to this top spot is if they win their last 3 games and the Celestials, Ice Cubes, and Mantans lose their last 2. Although it could come down to some differential. So technically, Ice Cubes and Mantans could win their Week 8 game, I believe. And maybe even Womble. No, actually, yeah, maybe. It depends on how bad Womble's wins were and how good his losses were. Because at worst, at 5-3, at best, the Terrors end +4, 5-3 +4, and so at worst, the Wombles end 5, or the Wombles, the Celestials end 5-3 +3. So technically, the Terrors don't need any of those teams to win. They don't need any of the teams to lose both. They just need them to lose one. So, yeah, Rebellion winning helps out them. Manitans winning makes the division extremely close, and it would get real interesting for Week 8. Because, again, if they lose Week 8 and other teams lose, yeah, you could just see a bunch of head-to-head tiebreakers potentially. Maybe it even comes down. Well, it wouldn't come down to kills unless there was a 3-way tie, which also could happen. So, yeah, if there's a 3-way tie, I don't know what happens there. Maybe it comes down to kills, but definitely some exciting matches. I mean, yeah, Terrors and Ice Cubes this week. Terrors need to get the win for sure as well. But I would say Mantans versus Rebellion is the bigger game because it could potentially. So Rebellion winning would guarantee his first seed, but Rebellion losing opens up the door for someone else to take the first seed, and it also makes the division extremely close. So really interesting stuff there. All right, let's go to Sapphire Division, my division. So Sauces actually have guaranteed second seed here. At worst, they're 4-4 +2 if they lose their next 2 games 0-2. And for that to happen, since Bashers and Sauces play this week, I would have to beat the Sauces if they had lost their first 2. Meaning, I would take first seed, and they'd be guaranteed second seed. And then at best, Sovalis are 4-4 +2 as well. But since the Sauces beat them during the regular season, they have the head-to-head tiebreaker. So even though the records could be tied at the end, they can't. The Sovalis can't overtake the Sauces for that second seed. So the other interesting thing is any 2 and 4 team actually has a good chance of beating the Bashers for their second seed in differential if they and the Bashers end 4-4. So, you know, the thing is, if the Bashers, so at best, if the Bashers lose both their games 1-2, they'll end 4-4 +1. But that's best case scenario. And Embors and Warriors could tie that, but if the Bashers lose one of their games, 2-0, then it opens up the door for Embors or Warriors to overtake them. And then Sovalis are the only ones that can guarantee second seed if Bashers lose both their games, as long as Sovalis win both theirs 2-0. Because if Sovalis win both theirs 2-0, they'll be +2. And Bashers, if Bashers lose both their games, they can't be +2. So then they would have to hope for wild card. So, yeah, because of that, easily the biggest game to watch out for is Bashers and Sauces. So, because if Bashers win this week, we know that the divisional seeds. It's Bashers 1, Sauces 2. Well, actually, not necessarily. If Bashers win this week, then lose the next week, they'll be second seed. But basically, Bashers winning guarantees first or second. Sauces are already guaranteed first or second. So, and then yeah, the Sovali's Warriors is also an interesting game because it's losing out because, um, well, not technically, um, because again, I did this slide beforehand, but there is a crazy scenario where it's not losing out, but virtually it's losing out for Sovalis and Warriors, and and the winner actually has a decent shot at second for the division. So um, that'll be really interesting. And again, Embors versus Dilfu. I mean, even though the Dilfu doesn't have a chance at getting second seed, um, they could take Embors out of contention. And then the other thing is could Embors winning just gives them another shot at taking the second seed. And what's interesting is if the Embors and Warriors win their games this week, Embors have that head-to-head tiebreaker on the Warriors. So they have similar differentials here. So if Bashers end up losing both their games, Embors and Warriors win both their games, Embors actually look pretty good to take the second seed. So yeah, you can't count anybody out quite yet. All right, so Diamond Division. So Gumi nearly has clinched first seed, but he actually could lose it because if Gumi loses, both games 0-2, which he's facing the Rabombis in this game this week. So he'd lose to the Rabombis 0-2, and he'd lose another game 0-2, and then the Rabombis win both of theirs 0-2. They end with the same record, 5-3 plus 4, but since the Rabombis would have just beat them, they have the head-to-head tiebreaker. So there is a small scenario for the Rabombis to get first seed. But in addition to that, every team besides Licky Lickies has potential for second seed. And since either the Blazikins or the Luxrays have to win this week, the lowest record that could take second seed is 3-5 minus 4, and that's if the Rabombis lose both weeks. Because if the Blazikins beat the Luxrays 2-1, so then they go to 3-4 minus 2, and then they lose their last game 0-2, they would end at 3-5 minus 4. And if the Rabombis lose both of their games, they would end at 3-5 minus 4. But since the Rabombis beat the Blazikins, they would have that tiebreaker. The Luxrays and the Incineroars would also have to lose their final games so that they don't have a better record than 3-5 minus 4. I mean, as you can note as well, the Licky Lickies could actually end 3-5 minus 4. But since they already lost to, well, actually, I guess you could have a three-way tie then at 3-5 minus 4. So I don't know what happens then. I guess maybe it comes down to kills. So I guess technically Licky Lickies could take second seed if there was a three-way tie at minus 4. Because if they win their 3 games 2-0, they're 3-5 minus 4. If Rabombis lose both theirs, they're 3-5 minus 4. And if Blazikins win their game 2-1 and then lose it 0-2, they end 3-5 minus 4. So yeah, you have a three-way tie there. I'm not sure how it works. I'm not sure if you go with head-to-head record among the teams. Since Rabombis has beaten both of them, would they just take it potentially, or does it go down to kills? I don't know. I don't know how that works. And then yeah, so definitely the biggest game to watch out for here is Luxrays versus Blazikins. Yeah, Pretzels, they have a high chance of taking first, I would say. So their game isn't as important with the Rabombis, I feel. And then because even if the Rabombis win, whoever wins between Blazekins and Luxrays still has a chance to take it as long as Rabombis lose in their final week. So it's not as consequential right now. Whereas going, being 2-5 is extremely hard to make playoffs, as I'll show in the next couple slides. But it's, even though it is possible, it's almost like a win and in or a losing out type of scenario for Blazekins and Luxrays. Actually, it's more of a losing out because it's not guaranteed win and in. And yeah, the Luxrays winning puts them in a very good position to take second because they have a very close differential to Rabombis, and they have the head-to-head tiebreaker since they have beaten the Rabombis. So if you're the Rabombis, you're definitely hoping Blazekins win that game. Yeah, Blazekins definitely need to win or they're out. Incineroars have the head-to-head tiebreaker against Blazekins and Luxrays. So Blazekins winning greatly helps their chances because it since they have the head-to-head tiebreaker on Luxrays and Blazekins, they would rather face off against the Blazekins in a head-to-head tiebreaker because the Blazekins have a lower differential right now. So, yeah, basically everybody wants Blazekins to win except for the Luxrays, which I guess makes sense. And so Pearl Division. Pearl Division, the Slowbros have clinched at least second seed since their worst is 6-2 plus 8, and while the Suicunes could beat that, the Darmanitans can only get to 6-2 plus 7. So they have guaranteed have at least second seed. So the Slowbros only don't get first if Suicunes win both weeks and Slowbros lose both weeks, because Suicunes can't beat them on differential, they just have to have a better record. So they would have to be 7-1. Slowbros would have to be 6-2. And then the Sableyes could actually take second seed as long as they win, and then the Darmanitans beat the Suicunes. Because if the Darmanitans beat the Suicunes, then they're both at 5-2. If Sableyes win, they're at 4-3, and they just need to end 5-3 with better differential than either of Darmanitans and Suicunes. So, it's I think it's possible. Well, actually, if the Sableyes win both of their games, they're at 5-3 plus 4 or plus 5. They're at plus 5. Yeah, and if the Darmanitans win, they could be at plus 5, but then if they lose, they'll be at plus 4 or something. So yeah, Sableyes could definitely take this. The Bewares can't take second seed, but they do have a shot at wild card if they win. And the Crocodiles, I guess, technically have a shot at wild card too if they win as well. But I'll go over that in the next slide. So the biggest game to watch out for is easily Suicune versus Darmanitans, because Darmanitans winning opens up the doors for either Suicunes, Darmanitans, or Sableyes to get second seed. Whereas if Suicunes win, they automatically get second seed. Darmanitans will actually Darmanitans will actually look pretty good if they beat the Suicunes, because they'll have the head-to-head tiebreaker on the Suicunes as well. So really big game here. The other interesting thing for the Sableyes is if the Darmanitans win, they have a shot at second seed. But if the Suicunes win, it hurts one of their wild card contenders, which would be Darmanitan's. So they actually have a better shot at wild card if the Suicunes win. So it's a little bit of a catch-22 there, They they could have a better shot at wild card or a better shot at second seed. So I'm not sure which one the Sableyes are hoping for, but I think if I were them, I would actually hope that the Suicunes won, because I think getting wild card is more doable for them. So they would want to get rid of their wild card contenders. So now, which I'm sure everyone wants to know, is what are the best records that could potentially not make playoffs, and what are the worst records that could make playoffs? So we're going to break that down here in the next couple slides. So the best ending record to not make playoffs could be 5-3 plus 3. So if your team might end at 5-3 plus 3, you are not guaranteed. And here's why. So I put the games that would need to happen here on the left slide. And this the reason being, this would result in Rebellion and Celesteelas taking the spots in Ruby, Slowbros and Suicunes taking them in Pearl, and meaning there would be 2 wildcard contenders, or meaning all the wildcard contenders would come from Ruby and Pearl. But you would have 5 teams left at 5-3 plus 3. So one of those teams would not make the wild card, would not make playoffs, and I don't know how that's determined. In addition, so here's the thing. It looks pretty crazy for what all needs to happen on the left side here, but technically not all of this needs to happen, because you could have a couple of these teams end at 6-2. Let's say or do they actually need to? Because do Ice Cubes need to lose? Oh yeah, they need to lose to the Terrors. So I think this actually might be the only scenario, because Manitans have to lose, Darmanitans have to lose, and well, actually, you could have a team at 6-2. You could have the Manitans at 6-2, but if the Darmanitans beat the Suicunes, then you could have some teams at 6-2. Yeah. Anyways, regardless, you could have 5 teams at 5-3, and one of them would not make playoffs. And so I don't know if it comes down to kills or what. When they're in different divisions, I think it makes it a little harder, for the wild card tiebreakers. But also, fun fact, at 5-1 plus 4, the Suicunes have the best record right now that could miss playoffs, but only if they lose their next 2 games. So I guess tiebreaker would come down to kill differential. Thankfully, Womble gets to deal with that, and let's make it happen. Let's give him a weird scenario to work through. He would get the divisional spot, so at least he wouldn't be biased in who he picks to make it. But who knows? Maybe he would be. Okay, now this is a little bit crazier, as you can see. The worst ending record that has a shot at making it is actually 3-5 minus 3. Now for this one definitely does not all need to happen. So the reason being, at a minimum, you have 2 teams from Ruby and 1 team from Diamond who would make wildcard with 4 wins. So the last wildcard team could be a 3-5 team. So since the Sableyes are the only 3-3 team right now, their lowest record could be 3-5 minus 3. So, for fun, I just checked all of the teams that could end with this record at the same time. Obviously, some of these teams don't have Obviously, some of these teams don't have to be here for like all this to happen. Like if you look down the list, you see Embor's face Dilfu and Licky Lickies, who both aren't in this contention. I mean, they could lose to both Dilfu and Licky Lickies, and then end at 2-6, and so they wouldn't even be in this list. So not everybody in this list needs to be here for this like scenario to happen, but they all could be. Basically, is the point. And so you have 9 teams that could potentially tie for the last wild card spot, which is absolutely bonkers. And fun fact, even though the Luxrays are 2-4 right now, they aren't on this list because if they were to go 3-5, they would have a -2 at a minimum. So they would have to lose both games for this above scenario to happen. Because if the Luxrays end 3-5, they would overtake all these teams. Additionally, the Crocodiles could achieve this record at 1-5 -7 right now. Now I don't know if they would win the tiebreakers against these teams and actually make it, but like theoretically they could have a tying record. And when you have a ton of teams with a tying record, I don't know how it shakes out, but you know what? You could. I think they should go for it. They should take down Otto and then win their last game. I forget who they face. Oh yeah, Terrors. So beat the Slow Bros, beat the Terrors, and at least give us the opportunity to see this happen. That's crazy that a 1-5 team right now still has a shot at playoffs, but it's been a pretty competitive season, so I guess that's not unheard of. I don't know, but extremely crazy. Check my math if you want to. You can just do the differential yourselves by what they're starting at and going through the games that I have here. The reason I didn't include differential on some of the games is because it doesn't matter. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. Should be a really interesting 2 weeks. This week's extremely interesting because it's the last divisional week, and then the out of divisional week 8 should get crazy. So let me know what you think. Maybe leave a comment on your predictions, and we'll see y'all for the final 2 weeks. Goomer out.